The morning sun rose over Redstone Valley like it did every other day. The human colony sat quiet in the golden light. Fields of wheat moved in the gentle wind. About 800 people lived here, most of them farmers and their families. They had built this place 15 years ago on a world far from Earth. Life was simple here. Life was peaceful. Danny Martinez woke up early. He was 8 years old with messy brown hair and dirt under his fingernails from yesterday's adventures. He looked across the small room at his younger brother Kyle. The 6-year-old was still sleeping, curled up under his blanket. Danny smiled. Today they would go explore the old caves again. Their mother Linda was already in the kitchen making breakfast. She was a strong woman with tired eyes. Her husband had died 2 years ago when his tractor rolled over in the south field. Since then, she had run the farm alone, with help from her boys when they weren't getting into trouble. And they got into trouble a lot. "Morning, Mom," Danny said as he walked into the kitchen. Linda turned and smiled. "Morning, sweetheart. Wake your brother. Breakfast is almost ready." The colony was small enough that everyone knew everyone. The Martinez family farm was on the edge of town, close to the forest. Beyond the forest were mountains. Beyond the mountains was nothing but wilderness. The boys loved it out there. They had found caves and streams and places where no one else ever went. In the center of town, Sergeant Greg Holland was already awake. He had been awake for hours. The old Marine never slept much. He lived in a small house near the security office. People in the colony called him the security chief, but that was a fancy name for a job that usually meant nothing. He checked the fences. He ran safety drills that most people ignored. He kept watch over a place where nothing bad ever happened. Greg was a big man with gray hair and scars on his arms. During his time in the military, other soldiers had called him Honey Badger. Not because he was sweet, because when he fought, he never stopped. He fought like the small earth animal that attacked anything, no matter how big. He fought until he won or until he couldn't fight anymore. But that was a long time ago. Now he was just an old man in a quiet colony. He had chosen this place because it was far from everything. Far from memories. Far from the daughter he had lost years before. The colony children reminded him of her sometimes. That hurt, but it also made him feel something other than empty. He looked at his computer screen. The long-range sensors showed nothing unusual. The same stars. The same empty space. He drank his coffee and prepared for another boring day. Then the alarm went off. Greg's hand hit the console before his brain fully understood. 3 contacts. Big ones. Coming in fast from the edge of the system. His military training kicked in like muscle memory. He pulled up the details. 3 warships. Unknown design, but the signatures matched reports he had read. Vaxian Empire. His blood went cold. He grabbed his radio. "Administrator Carson, get to the operations center now. We have incoming." Beth Carson arrived 10 minutes later, still putting on her jacket. She was the colony administrator, elected by the people 3 years ago. She was good at paperwork and selling arguments about water rights. She was not ready for this. "What are we looking at?" she asked. Greg pointed at the screen. "Vaxian warships. 3 of them. They'll be in orbit in about 6 hours. Vaxians? Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Beth sat down hard in a chair. Everyone had heard stories about the Vaxian Empire. They were expanding across the frontier, taking worlds they said were unused. Unused meant any world without a big military presence. Unused meant colonies like this one. What do they want? She asked, though she already knew. "They want us gone," Greg said. Or worse. By noon, the whole colony knew. People gathered in the town hall. Parents held their children. Farmers who had never held a gun in their lives asked Greg what they should do. He told them the truth. They had no warships. They had no real weapons. They had 40 hunting rifles and some old mining explosives. Against 3 Vaxian warships, they had nothing. The message came through at 2 in the afternoon. A cold voice speaking in broken human language. Human settlement. You occupy Vaxian territory. Evacuate in 48 hours. If you remain, you will be eliminated. This is your only warning. The town hall erupted in panic. People shouted. Some cried. Beth Carson tried to calm everyone down, but her voice was shaking too much. Greg Holland stood up. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Listen to me. We start evacuation procedures now. We have 2 transport ships. They can take maybe 300 people each trip. That means we need 2 trips. We load the children and their mothers first. Everyone else gets ready to leave tomorrow. What about our homes? Someone shouted. Homes can be rebuilt. People can't. Linda Martinez sat near the back with Danny and Kyle. The boys looked scared. She pulled them close and tried to smile, but tears ran down her face. This was their home. The only home the boys really remembered. And now monsters from space were taking it away. Greg organized work parties. Some people would start packing. Others would help load the ships. He would set up defenses around the colony, just in case the Vaxians came early. He knew it probably wouldn't matter, but he had to try. That was what soldiers did. They tried even when there was no hope. That night, Danny couldn't sleep. Kyle was crying quietly in his bed. They could hear their mother in the next room crying too. Through the window, they could see people loading trucks and carrying boxes. Everyone was scared. Danny? Kyle whispered. Are the bad aliens going to hurt us? Danny didn't know what to say. He was only 8, but he tried to be brave for his little brother. No, we'll be okay. Mom will keep us safe. But he didn't believe it. Nothing felt safe anymore. I want to go to the fort, Kyle said. I feel safe there. The fort was what they called the cave system in the mountains. It was their secret place. They had found it a year ago while exploring. Inside the caves, the world felt far away. Inside the caves, nothing bad could reach them. We can't go now, Danny said. Mom would be mad. She's busy. She won't even notice. Danny thought about it. Everyone was so busy preparing to leave. Their mom was at the town hall helping organize supplies. Maybe they could go for just a little while, just until things felt less scary. Okay, he said, but we have to be back before dark. The boys got dressed quietly. They took their backpacks with water and some food. They knew the path through the forest by heart. 3 miles to the mountains. Another half-mile to the cave entrance. They had done it 100 times. They slipped out the back door while the colony was in chaos. No one noticed 2 small boys disappearing into the trees. Behind them, Greg Holland watched the sky and prepared for war. Above them, 3 Vaxian warships moved closer, carrying soldiers who had never been defeated. And in the forest, 2 brothers walked toward their secret place, not knowing that tomorrow, the whole galaxy would learn what happens when you threaten human children. The peaceful days of Redstone Valley were over. General Krellox stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the small human colony below. The planet was green and blue, pleasant enough for a frontier world. The settlement itself was pathetic. A few hundred buildings, some farms, no defensive weapons that his sensors could detect. He was a large creature, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His scales were dark red, marking him as a high-ranking warrior in the Vaxian Empire. He had conquered 40 worlds in his career. This would be number 41, an easy addition to his record. General Dexter, take your forces down. Clear the settlement, Krellox said. His voice was deep and cold. General Dexter bowed his head. He was younger, eager to prove himself. His scales were still bright green, not yet darkened by age and experience. It will be done quickly, my lord. These humans will scatter like insects. Make it clean. I want this world ready for colonization by tomorrow. 200 Vaxian soldiers loaded into dropships. They carried weapons that could burn through steel. Their armor could stop any primitive human gun. They had never lost a ground battle. Not once in 50 years of conquest. Dexter looked at his warriors and felt pride. They were the best the Empire had. Tall, strong, trained since childhood. The humans below probably had farmers with old rifles. It would be over in an hour. The dropships fell toward the planet like metal rain. At dawn, Linda Martinez went to wake her sons. Their beds were empty. Her heart stopped. She ran through the small house calling their names. Nothing. She burst out the front door and saw the chaos of evacuation all around. People loading ships. Families saying goodbye. But no Danny. No Kyle. She ran to the nearest neighbor. Have you seen my boys? Not since yesterday. She ran to the next house. And the next. No one had seen them. Panic filled her chest like ice water. She knew where they had gone. The forest. The caves. Their secret place they thought she didn't know about. Greg. She screamed, running toward the security office. Greg Holland. The old Marine was checking weapons when she burst in. One look at her face told him everything. The boys are gone, she gasped. They went to the caves. I know they did. We have to find them. Greg's jaw tightened. The caves were 3 miles into the forest. 3 miles toward the mountains. If the Vaxians landed troops, they would sweep through that area. He looked at his computer screen. The dropships had already launched. I'll find them, he said. Stay here and help with the evacuation. I'm going with you. No, I move faster alone. I'll bring them back, Linda. I promise. He didn't wait for her to argue. He grabbed his pack, already loaded with supplies and weapons. His old combat gear hung on the wall, untouched for years. He put it on piece by piece. Body armor, ammunition, knives, grenades he had kept from his service days. The gear felt heavy now. He was not as young as he used to be, but the boys needed him. That was enough. He was heading out the door when the first explosions hit. The Vaxian dropships came in fast and loud. They landed in a circle around the colony, crushing crops and buildings under their weight. Ramps dropped. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. Greg ran to the colony center where Deputy Kyle Chun was organizing the defense. 30 colonists with hunting rifles stood behind makeshift barricades. They looked terrified. They should be. This was not a fair fight. Hold them as long as you can, Greg told Kyle. Get as many people on the transport ships as possible. Where are you going? The Martinez boys are in the forest. I'm bringing them back. Kyle looked at him like he was crazy. You can't go out there alone. The aliens will be everywhere. I know. Greg handed Kyle a radio. Channel 7. Keep it clear for me. Then he was gone, running into the forest while behind him the first shots of battle echoed across the valley. The Vaxian soldiers moved through the colony with confidence. They fired on anyone who resisted. Buildings burned. People ran. General Dexter watched from his command position and nodded in approval. This was going exactly as planned. Then one of his patrol leaders radioed in. General, we have found tracks. Small humans. Fresh. Leading into the forest. Dexter pulled up the map. The tracks went toward the mountains. Probably younglings trying to hide. They would be easy to capture. Useful for interrogation. Squad 7, follow those tracks. Bring back any humans you find alive. 12 Vaxian soldiers broke off from the main force. Their leader was a veteran named Kreth. He had hunted humans on other worlds. They were weak creatures. Their young were even weaker. This would be easy. The squad moved into the forest following the small footprints. 2 human children, running scared. Kreth almost felt sorry for them. Almost thought Greg Holland moved through the trees like a ghost. His old training came back automatically. Step quietly. Use cover. Watch for movement. He had done this 1,000 times in 100 different forests on a dozen. Different worlds thought he found the boys' trail quickly. They had been careless, leaving clear tracks. Danny and Kyle did not know how to hide their path. Why would they? They had never needed to before. Greg followed the tracks fast. Every minute counted. The boys were 3 miles ahead, maybe more. He had to reach them before the aliens did. Then he saw other tracks. Large boots. 12 sets. Vaxian soldiers. His blood went cold. They were following the boys. They were only 20 minutes ahead of him, but they were 20 minutes closer to Danny and Kyle. Something changed inside Greg Holland at that moment. The peaceful security chief disappeared. The honey badger woke up. He increased his pace. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. He was 55 years old and carrying 40 pounds of gear. But none of that mattered. Those boys needed him. He started planning. The terrain ahead was dense forest leading to rocky hills. Good for ambush. Good for fighting when you were outnumbered. He knew this land. The aliens did not. That was his advantage. His only advantage. The sound of weapons fire echoed from the colony behind him. People were dying back there. Linda Martinez was back there, probably crying and praying for her children. The whole colony was falling apart. But Greg could not think about that now. Right now, his whole world was 2 small boys and 12 alien soldiers. Everything else was noise. He checked his rifle. 30 rounds. He had 4 magazines. He had 2 grenades. He had his knives. Against 12 trained alien warriors, it was not enough. That would have to be enough. The tracks led up into the hills. The Vaxian patrol was moving fast now, probably sensing they were close. Greg could see where they had started to spread out, forming a hunting formation. They were professionals. This would not be easy. He found a good position on a ridge overlooking the path. He could see the cave entrance from here. The boys were probably inside, hiding in the dark. Safe for now. But the aliens would find them in minutes. Greg took a deep breath. He thought about his daughter, lost so many years ago. He thought about Linda Martinez and her desperate eyes. He thought about Danny trying to be brave for his little brother. He thought about Kyle, who still believed his secret fort could keep him safe from anything. They were wrong. The fort could not keep them safe, but maybe he could. Greg Holland checked his rifle one more time. Then he started down the hill toward 12 alien soldiers who had never learned what happens when you hunt human children. They were about to learn. They were about to meet the honey badger, and the honey badger never stopped fighting. Inside the cave, Danny held his little brother close. Kyle was crying again. The sounds of explosions came from far away, the dull booms that echoed through the mountains. Their home was under attack. Their mother was back there. Everyone they knew was back there. "I want to go home," Kyle whispered. "We can't." "Not yet. We have to wait until it's safe." "When will it be safe?" Danny didn't have an answer. He was 8 years old and trying to understand why aliens wanted to hurt them. They hadn't done anything wrong. They just lived here. They just wanted to be left alone. The cave was deep and dark. They had brought flashlights, but Danny was saving the batteries. A little bit of sunlight came through the entrance, enough to see by. The walls were rough stone. The floor was dirt and rocks. It smelled like wet earth and old air. Further back in the cave, Danny had found something interesting last month. Old mining equipment. The colony's first settlers had tried to mine here years ago, but gave up when they found nothing valuable. They left behind tools and crates and some other things Danny didn't understand, including sticks that looked like fireworks, but with more wires. He thought they might be explosives, the kind miners used to break rocks. His mother would be very angry if she knew he had found them. She would be even angrier if she knew he had been playing with them, trying to figure out how they worked. Now Danny looked at those crates in the back of the cave and wondered if they might need them outside. Kreth led his squad up the rocky path. The tracks were very clear now. The human younglings had come this way within the last few hours. They would be in the cave system ahead, trapped, easy to capture. Spread out, Kreth ordered. Surround the entrance. Dax and Vorn, you go in first. The rest of us follow. The Vaxian soldiers moved into position. They were confident. They had done this before on other worlds. Humans always hid in caves. Humans always thought they were safe underground. They were always wrong. 2 soldiers approached the cave entrance, weapons ready. The darkness inside didn't worry them. Their helmets had vision systems that could see in the dark better than any human eye. They never saw. Greg Holland above them. He had climbed up the rocks beside the cave entrance. Years of not using his combat skills had made him slower, but muscle memory was strong. He waited, absolutely still, as the first 2 aliens entered below Dot. Then he dropped. His knife went into the first soldier's neck, between the armor plates. Vaxian blood was purple, almost black. It sprayed across the rocks. The alien fell without a sound. The second soldier turned, raising his weapon. Greg was already moving. He grabbed the alien's gun arm and twisted hard. The bone broke with a crack. The soldier screamed. Greg's second knife ended that scream. The whole thing took 5 seconds. The rest of the squad saw their comrades fall. They opened fire immediately. Energy bolts tore through the air where Greg had been. But he was already gone, rolling behind a large boulder near the cave mouth. Contact. Human soldier. Armed and dangerous. Kreth shouted into his radio. General Dextar heard the report from his position back at the colony. A human soldier? Protecting the younglings? Interesting. Kill him. Capture the children. Kreth smiled. This might be more fun than he thought. Flush him out. Use grenades. But Greg wasn't waiting. He had already moved, crawling through rocks and using the terrain. He came up 30 yards away and fired his rifle. 3 shots, 3 hits. One Vaxian went down screaming. Another fell silent. The third's armor held, but the impact knocked him backwards. 9 soldiers left. Greg disappeared back into the rocks before they could return fire. The Vaxians were strong and well-armed, but this was his home. He knew every rock, every tree, every path. He led them away from the cave entrance, down into the forest where the trees were thick. The aliens followed, angry now. One human should not be able to fight like this. Humans were supposed to be weak. Greg moved like water between the trees. He fired from one position, then disappeared before they could target him. He had set simple traps earlier while climbing up. A rope between 2 trees caught one soldier's legs. The alien fell hard. Greg shot him before he could stand. 8 soldiers left. Kreth was getting frustrated. This human was fast. Too fast. And he knew the land too well. Split up. Flank him from both sides. It was a good tactic. Greg saw them spreading out and knew he was running out of tricks. He was one man against 8 trained warriors. His shoulder burned where a near miss had grazed him. He was breathing hard. Not as young as he used to be, but he couldn't stop. The boys were still in that cave. The aliens would go back for them the moment they finished him. He fell back to a defensive position near a cluster of large rocks. He had 2 grenades left. He set one as a trap, covered it with leaves. He kept the other in his hand. The Vaxians came at him from 3 sides. He threw the grenade. The explosion sent 2 of them flying backwards. He fired his rifle, dropping another one. 5 left now. But his ammunition was running low. An energy bolt hit the rock beside his head. Stone chips cut his face. Another bolt hit his shoulder, burning through his armor. He grunted in pain but kept fighting. That was what the honey badger did. He fought until there was nothing left to fight with. "General, this human is unusually skilled," Kreth reported, requesting additional forces. Dexter was watching his tactical display. 1 human had killed 7 of his soldiers. 7. This was embarrassing. Sending 30 more troops. Don't let him escape. Inside the cave, Danny heard the fighting get closer, then further away, then closer again. Someone was out there protecting them. He didn't know who. Maybe Mr. Holland. Greg was the only soldier the colony had. Kyle had stopped crying. He was listening to the battle sounds with wide eyes. "Is someone helping us?" "I think so. Are they going to be okay?" Danny looked at his little brother. He thought about their mom. He thought about all the people in the colony who were probably fighting right now. Everyone was trying to protect everyone else. Even 2 small boys hiding in a cave. Maybe they could help too. "Kyle, come with me. I need to show you something." He led his brother to the back of the cave where the old mining equipment was stored. The crates with the explosives. Danny had been studying them for weeks. He understood how they worked now. You connected the wires. You used the detonator box. The explosion was very big. "What are you doing?" Kyle asked. "Helping." Danny started connecting wires like he had practiced. His hand shook, but he kept working. If bad aliens came into the cave, maybe they could fight back. Maybe they could do something brave. Outside, Greg Holland was down to his last magazine. Blood ran down his arm. His shoulder burned like fire. But he had taken down 11 Vaxians now. Only Kreth was left from the original squad. Then he heard the sound that made his heart sink. More dropships. The reinforcements were arriving. He could see them through the trees. 30 new soldiers landing in the clearing below. He was out of ammunition. Out of grenades. Out of tricks. But he wasn't out of fight. Greg Holland stood up from behind his cover. 41 aliens surrounded him now. Their weapons were all pointed at him. He was bleeding and exhausted. He should surrender. Any reasonable person would surrender. He raised his rifle and smiled. The aliens opened fire. Linda Martinez fired her hunting rifle at the Vaxian soldiers. Her hands shook. She had never shot at a living thing before. But these creatures were destroying her home. And somewhere in the forest, her babies were hiding and scared. The colony was burning. Half the buildings were gone. Bodies lay in the streets, both human and alien. Deputy Kyle Chun was shouting orders, trying to coordinate what was left of their defense. 20 colonists were still fighting. The rest were either dead, wounded, or trying to reach the evacuation ships. Beth Carson had been hit in the first wave. She died protecting a group of children. The colony administrator had never held a gun in her life, but she had stood her ground anyway. That was what humans did when their children were threatened. "Fall back to the town hall," Kyle Chun yelled. "We can't hold this position." Linda retreated with the others, reloading as she ran. Vaxian energy bolts burned the air around her. One hit the ground by her feet, spraying dirt across her legs. She kept running. She had to survive. Her boys needed their mother. Up in orbit, General Krellox watched the battle on his displays. The human resistance was stronger than expected, but it was breaking. Another hour, and the colony would be his. Then he could start proper colonization procedures. His communication officer interrupted. "General, report from General Dextar. One of his patrol squads has encountered significant resistance in the forest sector. 11 casualties. They engaged a single human soldier." Krellox turned. "One human killed 11 of our soldiers." "Yes, General. Dextar has sent reinforcements. The human is now surrounded." This was unexpected. Krellox pulled up the tactical feed from the forest. He saw the human soldier, covered in blood and burns, standing alone against 40 Raxian warriors. The human was smiling. What is wrong with this creature? Krellox muttered dot in the forest. Greg Holland knew he was about to die. The aliens had him completely surrounded. He was out of ammunition. His body was failing. But he had bought time. The boys were still safe in the cave. That was something. Kreth stepped forward, his weapon pointed at Greg's head. "Surrender, human. You fought well. We will make your death quick." Greg spat blood on the ground. "Come try it." The Vaxians started to pull the trigger. Then gunfire erupted from the tree line. 12 colonists came charging out of the forest, weapons blazing. Deputy Kyle Chun was in front, firing a rifle in each hand. Next to him was Linda Martinez, screaming her son's names as she fought. The other colonists spread out, hitting the Vaxians from the side. The aliens were caught off guard. They had been focused on Greg. They hadn't expected more humans to attack. 3 Vaxians went down in the first seconds. Then 5. Then 8. Greg dropped to the ground as bullets flew overhead. He grabbed a weapon from a fallen alien and started shooting. The colonists fought with desperate fury. They were farmers and shopkeepers. They were parents and grandparents. But right now they were warriors protecting their home. The Vaxians tried to regroup, but the humans gave them no chance. Kyle Chun threw a mining charge into their center. The explosion scattered the aliens. Linda Martinez shot anything that moved. She was done being scared. She was done running. Her children were out here somewhere, and she would burn this whole forest down to save them. The battle turned into chaos. Humans and aliens fighting in close quarters between the trees. No tactics. No strategy. Just violence and determination. Kreth tried to rally his troops. Form defensive positions. Return fire? But his soldiers were confused. These were supposed to be weak humans. Farmers. How were they fighting like this? Greg Holland forced himself to stand. His legs barely held him. He saw Linda and felt a surge of energy. If she could fight, so could he. He picked up 2 more weapons and started forward. "For the colony," someone screamed. "For our children." Another voice answered. The Vaxians broke. Some tried to retreat. Others fought where they stood. Within 5 minutes, half of them were dead or wounded. The rest were scattered through the forest. Kreth radioed General Lextar. "We need immediate support. The humans are. They're everywhere." Lextar couldn't believe what he was hearing. His forces were being pushed back by primitive colonists. This was impossible. "Hold your position. I'm sending another 50 soldiers." But Krellox was watching the same displays from orbit. He saw his ground forces struggling. He saw humans fighting with a ferocity that should not exist in such a weak species. One settlement was costing him hundreds of casualties. This was unacceptable. "Lextar, I'm coming down," Krellox announced. "Prepare for my arrival. I will end this personally." His officers looked nervous. Generals did not usually join ground battles. It was beneath their rank. But Krellox was angry now. These humans had embarrassed him. They had made him look weak. He would crush them himself and restore his honor. He took 100 of his best warriors. Elite guards who had never lost a battle. They loaded into a command dropship and headed for the planet Dot in the forest. Greg Holland fell to his knees. The fighting was over for now. The Vaxians had retreated. The colonists had won this small battle. Linda Martinez ran to him. "Greg, where are my boys?" He pointed at the cave. "In there. Safe. I kept them safe." She hugged him, tears streaming down her face. Then she ran toward the cave entrance, calling for Danny and Kyle. The boys heard their mother's voice. They came running out of the darkness and into her arms. All three of them cried and held each other. Kyle Chun checked on the other colonists. 8 were wounded. 2 were dead. But they had killed or driven off nearly 60 Vaxian soldiers. Against all odds, they had survived. He looked at Greg. "How did we do that?" Greg laughed, then coughed blood. "You fought like humans." "That's how. What do we do now?" "They'll send more." "I know." Greg looked at the forest around them. At the mountains. At the old mining area he had explored during his first weeks on this colony. An idea formed in his tired mind. A crazy, desperate idea. "Kyle, get everyone together." "I have a plan." "What kind of plan?" Greg smiled, and it was the smile of the honey badger. "The kind where we win." On the dropship heading down from orbit, General Krellux prepared his weapons. He would lead the assault personally. He would show these humans what happened when they defied the Vaxian Empire. His 100 elite warriors stood ready behind him. General Dextar waited on the ground with another 50 soldiers. Together they would have 150 of the Empire's best fighters, against 40 or 50 human colonists. It would be a slaughter. What none of the Vaxians understood was that humans fought differently when their children were threatened. What they didn't know was that a wounded animal is the most dangerous. What they didn't realize was that Greg Holland had just gotten his second wind. The honey badger was bleeding and hurt. But he wasn't done fighting. Not even close. And now he had 40 humans who were just as angry as he was. 40 humans who had just learned they could hurt the aliens who had come to destroy their home. 40 humans who were ready to follow him into hell if that's what it took. The Vaxian generals were about to learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never threaten human children. Because if you do, you're not fighting soldiers. You're not fighting warriors. You're fighting parents. And parents never surrender. General Krellux stepped off the dropship and looked at the forest with disgust. Somewhere in those trees, primitive humans had killed over 60 of his soldiers. This should have been simple. It should have been over in an hour. Now it was personal. General Vextar approached and bowed. "My lord, the humans have retreated to the old mining area. We have them surrounded." "How many?" "Our scouts report approximately 40 fighters. Many wounded." Krellux laughed. It was a harsh, cold sound. 40, and we have 150 of our best warriors. This ends now. We marched together and crushed them. The Vaxian forces formed up. Elite soldiers in heavy armor. Weapons that could melt steel. They had conquered worlds. They had destroyed armies. 40 human colonists would be nothing. They marched into the forest in formation, confident and unstoppable. Greg Holland watched them come. He was lying on his stomach on a ridge overlooking the approach. His shoulder was bandaged. The blood still seeped through. Every breath hurt. His vision was blurry from exhaustion and pain, but his mind was clear. The old mining area was below him. Years ago, the first colonists had tried to dig for minerals in this valley. They had used explosives to break through rock. They had dug deep tunnels. Then they found nothing valuable and abandoned it. The whole place was unstable. Tunnels and caves ran everywhere underground. One good explosion could collapse the entire valley. Greg had sent most of the colonists back to the colony. Only 12 stayed with him. The best fighters. the ones who understood they might not survive. Linda Martinez was among them. She had refused to leave. "You kept my boy safe," she had said. "Now I keep you safe." Deputy Kyle Chun was there too. So were 10 others whose names Greg had memorized. If they were going to die together, he wanted to know who they were. Danny and Kyle Martinez were back in the cave with the other children. But before Linda had taken them there, the boys had showed Greg something. The mining charges they had found. The detonators. Everything still worked after all these years. An idea had formed. A terrible, beautiful idea. "They're coming," Kyle Chun whispered beside him. Greg nodded. "Get ready. Remember the plan. Make it look real." The 12 humans opened fire on the advancing Vaxians. Their shots were scattered and weak. They looked panicked. They looked defeated. That was the idea. The Vaxian forces charged forward, seeing easy prey. The humans ran, retreating deeper into the mining valley. Some dropped their weapons as they fled. They screamed. They looked terrified. General Krulok smiled. "They break. Push forward. Give them no mercy." His soldiers surged ahead, abandoning their careful formation. This was victory. This was the end. They would crush these humans and then burn the entire colony as a lesson to others. The human fighters ran to the far end of the valley. They took positions behind rocks and old mining equipment. They looked trapped. They looked hopeless. It was perfect. "Now they will learn their place," General Dextar said, walking beside Krelok's. Both generals were at the front of their forces, eager to personally finish this fight. 150 Vaxian soldiers entered the valley. The unstable valley that rested on old tunnels and caves. The valley that Danny and Kyle Martinez had spent all afternoon rigging with every mining charge they could find. Greg Holland stood up from behind his cover. He looked across the valley at the 2 alien generals. They saw him and laughed. One human, covered in blood, standing against their entire force. "Surrender," Krelok shouted. "We will make it quick." Greg shook his head slowly. Then he smiled. That terrible smile that other Marines had learned to fear. The smile of the honey badger who had never learned how to quit. "You should have left the children alone," Greg said quietly. He raised his hand and gave a simple signal. In the cave. Danny Martinez pushed the detonator. The world exploded. Mining charges, buried all through the valley, went off in sequence. The ground shook. Then it cracked. Then it collapsed. Old tunnels that had been waiting to fall for years finally gave way. The valley floor dropped 20 feet in seconds. Vaxian soldiers fell screaming into the earth. Rocks and dirt buried them. The sound was like thunder that wouldn't stop. General Krelok tried to run, but the ground opened beneath him. He fell into darkness, his scream cut short by tons of falling stone. General Dextar managed 3 steps before the earth swallowed him too. The last thing he saw was a human on the ridge above, watching him fall. The collapse spread across the entire valley. 120 Vaxian soldiers disappeared into the ground. Only 30 on the outer edges managed to escape, running back toward the forest in panic. The human fighters held their positions and picked them off one by one. No mercy, no hesitation. These aliens had come to kill their families. Now they paid the price. When the dust settled, the valley was gone. In its place was a crater filled with rocks and broken earth. Somewhere beneath it all, 2 Vaxian generals lay dead with most of their army. Greg Holland fell to his knees. His vision went dark for a moment. When it cleared, Linda Martinez was beside him, holding him up. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Above them, the Vaxian warships detected the disaster. Their generals were gone. Most of their ground forces were gone. The remaining soldiers were retreating in chaos. The ship commanders looked at each other in shock. They had never lost generals before. Never. And certainly not to primitive humans on a frontier colony. "Recall all forces," the senior commander ordered. "We're leaving. But the mission is over. We've lost 2 generals to farmers. If this gets out, we'll be laughingstocks. We leave now and report this as a strategic withdrawal." The Vaxian warships turned and jumped to FTL. Within minutes, they were gone. Back at the colony, people emerged from hiding. They saw the alien ships leaving. They saw their defenders returning from the forest. They saw Greg Holland barely able to walk, supported by Linda Martinez and Kyle Chun, and they cheered. They screamed with joy. They had won. Against all odds, against impossible enemies, they had won. The days after were hard. They had lost 37 people in the fighting. The colony was damaged. But they had survived. More importantly, they had learned something about themselves. Humans could fight. Humans could win. Word spread fast across the frontier. The story of Redstone Valley. The story of 2 little brothers hiding in a cave. The story of a retired Marine they called the Honey Badger. The story of farmers who became warriors when their children were threatened. The story of 2 alien generals who thought humans were weak and paid for that mistake with their lives. Other colonies heard and found courage. If Redstone Valley could fight, so could they. Defense militias formed. Warning systems were built. The frontier stopped being an easy target. The Vaxian Empire never admitted what happened, but they stopped expanding in that direction. They told themselves the humans weren't worth the trouble. But really, they were afraid. Afraid of what humans would do when pushed too far. 3 months later, Greg Holland sat on his porch. His wounds had healed, though he would carry the scars forever. Danny and Kyle Martinez visited every day, bringing him food and telling him stories. The colony had built a memorial in the town square. 37 names carved in stone. Greg looked at those names often. People who shouldn't have been warriors. People who had fought anyway because they had no choice. "Mr. Holland?" Danny said one afternoon. "Why did you do it? You could have left with everyone else." Greg looked at the boy. 8 years old and braver than most soldiers he had known. "Because you needed me, but you could have died. So could you. So could your brother. So could your mother. Someone had to stop the bad guys." He smiled. "Might as well be an old honey badger." Kyle climbed up on the porch railing. "Are more aliens going to come?" "Maybe. Probably. Will we be ready?" Greg looked out at the colony, at the new defenses they had built, at the militia that now trained every week, at the people who had learned they could fight when they had to. "Yeah," he said. "We'll be ready." The story of Redstone Valley became legend. It spread across human space and beyond. It was told on Earth and Mars and 100 colony worlds. It was even told by some aliens in quiet voices as a warning. Never threaten human children. Because if you do, you might meet the honey badger. And the honey badger never stops fighting.